we're now working against an opponent who begins to stand up. The first instance of this we're going to go through is combat based, which is basically where Ed steps up on one leg. Okay? It's kind of a block. It can work as a block. If he's up on that leg, he can block my near leg and make it very difficult to attach the K-guard on this far leg. Whereas if this leg was on the ground, then I have access towards that leg. Okay, so how do we deal with this, or what are our options from here? In reality, just looking for K-guard would limit yourself a little too much. We're looking for K-guard, De La Riva, reverse De La Riva. They're our main three. And then I'll also show something that ties in with our half guard series, which is different instructional, but using the Jedi mind trick that can work from here as well. Okay, so basically what we're going to look at is whether I can get to K-guard is going to depend on whether the knee is on this side of my hips or not. So if Ed brings the knee up and it's on this side, it's going to be very difficult to get to K-guard. If I manage to get his knee centered, even just in the middle of my hips, I actually have reasonable access to get towards this leg. Okay? So whether his knee is there, and then we've also got whether we go into reverse De La Riva or De La Riva. Okay? So oftentimes we can switch back into De La Riva if he opens the space. So if he's lifted his hips up when he does this, I can often swing back and get a very good De La Riva and Berimbolo entry from this. While if I'm able to pummel my foot under the armpit, I can often go straight into an invert from reverse De La Riva. Let's first talk about our bottom leg positioning, or the one that we might put across towards K-guard. Now, Ed what does Ed want to do with this? If he can, he wants to step over this leg. I have to be wary that this position is almost a cross knee through pass. He's almost got that. If he can step over the leg, he's going to get me in a really bad position, especially if he gets the underhook like he has here. So you need to be wary of what's going on with your upper body and not letting him get an underhook, and also wary of what's happening with your leg here. So if we go back, I can keep my leg, I could put my leg right across the hip. I could have it kind of just sitting, just past the hip here. Or sometimes you can even have it in front of the stomach. So with your knee down towards the ground, in front of the stomach here. They call this the keymaster position. Some of the guys from Norway use this. And this one can be good. I find it a little harder to get to K-guard if I'm doing this, but it can be good, particularly if I want to start to switch back towards De La Riva. And by putting your foot here, it's very hard for Ed to step over. It's hard for him to push that off. Okay. I personally will often put my foot just past the hip here. Okay, so it's like the outstep of my foot will sit on the top of the thigh. So if Ed tries to push that down where he is, it's going to be sort of difficult. He could do it, but he would have to step backwards. Okay. Yeah, he has to step back to push my leg down. And when he does that, that's my time to retract my knee to my chest. Okay, I don't want to keep that there. I want to pull this back now. Okay, I don't want to let him step over the leg. Okay, so in this scenario, I don't actually put it dangling past the hip, because here you can just almost push it down on the spot. Okay, you can slide that down. It's too big of a lever for him. Having it kind of the outstep of my foot attached to the hip, he kind of has to step back. As he steps back, I'll retract my leg and pummel it back in front of the arm. My top leg, I can have usually as either a knee shield or even better, stepping on the armpit. If you can get the armpit, this is excellent because I can elevate Ed. This is going to give me really good options to hook. Okay. Or a knee shield is kind of a backup. So if Ed's pushed my leg off and I can't control that, and he starts to close the distance, and a knee shield is an extra backup I've got here. With the aim of going to a high knee shield though. Okay, so eventually I'm wanting a high knee shield or potentially to step on the armpit. So my hands will really reinforce both shoulders, preventing Ed from getting any good sort of underhook, and always allowing space to step back in underneath this armpit if I have the availability to do that. Right. One other thing to consider here is this arm. Okay, so sometimes Ed will do, for example, he might push my armpit, or he's looking for an underhook. What we can often do is actually take a 2-on-1. All right, if I take a 2-on-1 and pull Ed's wrist somewhere near the midline, I am no longer too concerned about the cross knee through pass, because if he tries to, even if he steps over my leg and he tries to pass here, he doesn't have control of my body at all. So I'm not in an extreme amount of danger. Okay. Whereas if he can get that underhook, I am in danger. All right. So we go back. A great control to look for, which will often come when you use a knee shield from here, is to take the wrist 2-on-1 and take that across. And that can give us some good options to work back in towards something like a De La Riva. So now I'm going to look at getting to K-guard. So if I'm doing well in framing Ed away, so I got my foot under the armpit maybe, or even just a good knee shield that's blocking him, closing the gap while my arms are in position, I will often look to try to get Ed's knee to the center of my hips. To do that, I kind of back heel off my right leg. So you can see here, I back heel to scoot my hips down to the side. Okay, so it kind of moves my hips in and squares me up towards the roof. From there, I want to actually sit upwards. I can use my leg under his armpit a little bit, so I kind of kick up with this leg. I want to sit upwards and try to reach under the leg. Okay. Then when I fall to the side, I should have the leg. And I've got the K-guard position. Okay. So we'll look at that from the side. I'll just turn a little more. So here, I'm going to back heel. So the knee goes in the center. Now I can start to attack. Okay, I have the freedom and the range to reach the leg. So I'll kick up, sit forward, and then I reach under the leg. Even if I just get my hand there, when I fall to the side, it should scoop the leg up. My head goes towards the legs. I've got my leg folded. Even though his knee's up here, when I've got my other leg under the armpit and I'm here, I should still have a good ability to off balance and bring the knee up onto the stomach for K-guard. What I don't want to do is just go sideways. This is how I used to try this, and it would always fail. If I go sideways for the leg here, even if I move out and I go here, it's very easy for Ed to sprawl your leg back. Okay? I've lost that leg, or he could cross face me as well. Okay? Here he cross faces. By staying front on, I can sit forward, and so I actually get a lot closer without threatening the leg so much. And I have other options that I can threaten with this too. Okay, so by going more here, I stop him retreating with my leg, sit forward. I can reach the leg a lot easier that way than I can by curling sideways and reaching for the leg this way. One other advantage of this is if I sit forward and Ed takes this leg back, it often lets me start to underhook and attack this near leg. Okay, so it often lets me get good access to this leg, which I can attack next. So Ed's got his knee in front. I'm framing his upper body, making enough space. I back heel to get my hips into the center and the knee centered. From here, I kick up, sit forward, reach towards the leg, fall to the side, and connect to the K-guard. So if we get a chance, maybe it's hard to get, maybe I'm finding it hard to get the far leg. Let's turn this way a bit. Maybe I'm finding it hard to get my hips to the inside, to get the sit forward, to get the far leg. So Ed's kind of continually tracking this way. Or it might be that he's trying to kind of push this leg down. Okay. So, just go back one moment. I'm going to be looking at most times to pummel my foot under the armpit. This can elevate Ed's hips. So his hips are very low. He's basically sitting on his heel right now. So if I tried to get a hook, turn around a bit, sit down, I can't get a reverse De La Riva hook. Okay. But when I lift up on his shoulder and curl in, now I can get my hook. Okay. I can also reach my hand underneath at the same time I hook, and I have room to reach my hand underneath. So I've really off-balanced his weight out to the side and slightly forwards. Okay. So again, we're here. I'm trying to get K-guard. I frame the armpit with my thumb, step, I push, hook, and now I have excellent positioning to reach underneath, lift my shoulders, and roll through with reverse De La Riva. So I'm trying to get to K-guard, I can't get it, I frame the shoulders, step on the armpit, and I'm going to lift. As I lift, that's going to allow my foot to hook as a reverse De La Riva hook, so on top of the thigh. That's going to allow me to underhook the leg or grip the heel, and from here, I lift the heel up and roll through out towards the back. We'll cover a little more on the invert in the reverse De La Riva section. So we can look to go towards De La Riva from here as well. Now, there's a few times you might do that. If you get a 2-on-1, often from here, I feel confident to just step on the leg here, pendulum my left leg, and swing onto my left side. So I now have a De La Riva hook, and I've got an angle from De La Riva. One thing that shows up quite a lot is as you go towards reverse De La Riva, Ed starts to move backwards. So I start reaching, I start lifting, and he's moving back here. Okay, and that can be a great time to grip the ankle with my right hand and then swing to my left hip, elevating his foot and keeping the leg in my right hand. So this is actually a better De La Riva to get to than if I was holding on with my left hand. I've actually got his leg elevated, like so, and I'm above the line of his knee here, which means I'm a bit further along the pathway towards the back. Okay, so for that one, we might be looking, I've gone from here, I tried to go reverse De La Riva, or even I just noticed, so just get back a minute. So your knee's still in front, blocking the key guard. He starts to back away, I can grab the ankle. I've got the option to reverse De La Riva, but I see he's backing away so far that instead I will step on the leg and pivot my hips and lift the leg at the same time. So it's a little like pendulum here. Will take me from my right side to my left side. Okay? And I want the foot lifting up. Right. Once more. Once I step on the hip, so he can't come forward at me now, I can swing to the other side, hook in front of the thigh, I have De La Riva, and I can start to climb towards the back from there. So in summary, our main attacks against the combat base, I'm going to try, if I can, to use my leg to scoop my hips inside the knee, sit forward, and attach to the far leg for Keiga. If Ed brings his knee in quite far, making that difficult, often it's easier to then step and change sides into De La Riva. Or if we manage to get something like a 2-on-1, that's a very easy transition to do as well. If you manage to pummel under the armpit, so obviously there's this battle going on and he's fighting my legs, and I manage to step on the armpit, I can start to elevate, reverse De La Riva hook, and spin. And if you're going for that, sometimes you kind of elevate, Ed might back away, but I can grab the ankle, I can step again, swing, and have De La Riva with the leg elevated. We can go for the Jedi Mind Trick, which is often a half guard technique, although we actually won't necessarily take our feet out into the half guard position. Two ways we can do this. Either I take the 2-on-1, or I get a hook around the thigh at first, okay, and the knee, forcing the knee to the inside. Okay, so it's going to be essential with this that I don't give an underhook. If Ed takes an underhook, I end up in a bad spot. This is why I like this move, but it's more risky. I tend to prefer staying with the other attacks, just because if I mess them up, I don't end up in such a bad position. If I mess this one up, it can be bad. Okay, you end up in a deep knee through. Okay, so, but it can work really well, and we can get out to the back. So if I get we'll start off with the 2-on-1 here. So Ed's framing, I take this arm away. What I want to do is actually jam my knee and force Ed into a knee cut position, but he doesn't have the underhook. Okay, so you see that? His knee's up. I take my knee to the back of his knee and I force it down to the inside, trying to jam. So you should see my knee poking through that gap. Okay. At the same time, I'm keeping my foot in front of the hip still. Right. So again, here, my foot goes just a little bit past the hip now, and I drag that knee across. And because I've dealt with this arm, I should have access to the far hip. Okay. Ed can't underhook and block me, which would be very bad. He can keep going for a knee cut here. But if I block this, I can sit up and reach the hip. Okay. Once I reach the hip, so I'm reaching over to the far hip bone, I can start to block this leg or pull in. So I basically want to stop Ed standing up here and putting his knee to the other side. If he puts his knee across my body, okay, this would be bad. So I want to keep like connected to the side of the leg here. Pull it into me, or sometimes pushing, but if you're trying to take that leg across now, I'm stuck to the side of the leg, right? From here, I want to bump him forward. So we'll turn around. So from here, I'm going to knee Ed in the butt to bring his hips forward, so I can start to get a hook behind his back, like a crab ride style hook. I'm going to knee him in the butt here. His hips lift. I lift my knee up and hook behind. Okay. You see my knees on the outside and my foot's on the inside, just like in crab ride. Don't let your leg go down and through, because Ed could backstep here and then he's in the saddle, or he could attack my legs. So I keep my knee high. Try to take the saddle now. Okay. See how my knee stayed above the line of his hip, so try to backstep to saddle. Okay. He doesn't get over the line of my knee. More. So better. Okay. Go for saddle. Okay. My knee never gets caught like that, right? We're able to go back. If my knee drops through, now he backsteps to saddle. Okay, so I really like to focus on the top leg here. So just have a look from this angle as I enter. But here, I take the 2-on-1, I jam the knee down, sit up, and grip the hip. I'm going to knee him in the butt, and as if he wants to try to get saddled, he's not going to get it. I'm going to hook the leg. If he stays down and doesn't go for saddle, that's fine. I'm going to hook the leg anyway, keeping my knee out, so I'm ready for that back step. Once I'm here, I can take my bottom leg out and start to come out towards the back. Another option, slightly more risky than the 2-on-1, is to elevate and hook around the leg with my arm. So if I don't have access to a 2-on-1, maybe Ed's just not giving me that grip, and I still want to go for this technique, then I need to hide my underhook in some way and still force his knee inside. Last time I used my leg, but here, without having the 2-on-1, I'm at risk of Ed really closing this gap. So I don't want to do that now. I don't want to use my knee to bring the knee in. I want to use my arm. So I want to keep my legs framing so he can't close the gap with my legs, and I make space enough that I can start to reach under this leg. Okay. So often by lifting up, pushing away, I can reach under this leg, and then I can start to use my arm to guide the leg to the inside. Okay. So my arm will guide the leg to the inside. My knee will bump Ed forward. Okay, like so. So my arm forces the knee to the inside. My knee will bump Ed forward, like so. Okay. Now that he's bumped forward, I'm not feeling a huge threat for the underhook, so I can let go and reach gap. Being mindful not to open this gap, but to keep my shoulder tight and my right leg back heeling against his thigh. Okay. So it's kind of like a push-pull here to bring me forward. Now I take the far hip, take my knee back, and I start threading this hook, looking to take the back from here. So the second version, I elevate, reach underneath the leg, force the knee to the inside, knee up the butt, as I curl my right foot, bringing his hips close to me, capturing the hip, moving my knee back, head away, so that I can pummel a crab right hook, and then retract my bottom leg, taking the back. We're now going through K-guard entries against a standing opponent. And really, quite a few of these are going to be from reverse De La Riva and De La Riva. We'll cover them in detail in the De La Riva and reverse De La Riva sections. But I will also just cover a general entry against a standing opponent as well. Right. So, if Ed's here and I want to get to K-guard, it's very similar to if he was kneeling, in that I want to make sure I separate this space between his elbow and his knee so I can shoot my leg up. If I'm able to do that, I can often enter K-guard from the standing position. So usually you're going to want to control an arm here. It's not like the kneeling position in that I wouldn't just shoot my leg up. It's actually just going to allow him to control my leg. Okay, so against a standing opponent, I am going to want to get a 2-on-1 like almost every time, but I want to shoot the K-guard. Okay. Once I have that, it is somewhat similar. My hips are going to move out to the side. I'm going to try and pummel my right leg under this armpit as my left foot goes across the hip, like so. Okay. From here, so my foot's going across the hip. I'm expecting Ed to start to try to fight that, and I'm ready to pummel my foot over and inside to the armpit. At the same time, if he's not doing that, that's fine. I can start reaching under the leg. So I almost pull myself towards north-south as I reach under the leg, shoot my knee under, and I've now got K-guard position. Again, we're going to control the arm. Often if our opponent's reaching towards us, we can control the back of the elbows. This is a great time to do it as well. Hips out to the side, shoot your leg across, and try to pummel your other leg underneath. Okay, if you can get that shoulder, that's great. I can then start to attach to the leg. Again, if I don't have access to the shoulder and Ed stays back with that arm, that's fine. I can continue to reach under the leg, bring my knee under, to make sure your foot stays on the outside, knee goes underneath, I attach to the knee, and I get to K-guard positioning. So a lot of the time, it's going to be very difficult to shoot to K-guard because our opponent will block our leg from having access, especially against someone standing. It's much easier when they're kneeling. It's easier when they're on the ground because you can kind of separate. They're less mobile, and there's got more space to push your leg down through when they're standing. Okay, so if I was here, even if I get the arm, a lot of the time, if I shoot, like Ed here has closed his elbow to his knee. If I try to shoot into a position for K-guard, you'll see I'll miss, okay? I don't get up into the hip, and he can quite easily push my leg down. A lot of the time, it's just a better option to look towards De La Riva instead of K-guard. So instead of looking to attach to the hip, I'm going to look to attach to the knee. Okay, so get into stance again. Here, I might look to pull myself into a De La Riva position like so. So I'm attaching with a hook underneath like so, and gripping onto the leg, making it difficult for Ed to retract. Now we're going to have a whole section on De La Riva, so we're not going to go into a lot of details about this. I will just show briefly the K-guard entries, but again, if you want more detail on them from De La Riva, it fits into that system better, so we'll do that then. Okay. So usually, if we want to go to K-guard from De La Riva, we're going to have to go underhook De La Riva. Okay. From here, I can go then to pushing the knee. So when I go underhook De La Riva, I block Ed's knee going forward. I retract my hips, drop my knee on the inside. This is a shallow K-guard. We will cover this a little bit later in the K-guard section. But I can shoot my foot up to the hip and my knee inside, and we can get to regular K-guard from here as well. Okay, so again, if you do go De La Riva, the pathway is to underhook first, block them advancing second as you retract your foot, and knee to the inside. Because obviously for K-guard I need my knee on the inside. I'm pulling my knee out and dropping it on the inside with my foot staying on the outside. From here, I've got shallow K-guard, or I could shoot by spinning more towards north-south. I can shoot my foot up towards the hip and knee coming to the inside as I spin back. All right, we can enter from reverse De La Riva. Again, we'll cover this in more detail in the reverse De La Riva section, but just to be aware of our options from here for when we cover that later. So obviously my leg has been trapped. I usually want my foot on the outside, but it's managed to push that leg down and go to reverse De La Riva. We can go to K-guard from here. Usually I'm going to want to pummel my foot to the armpit, extend, and then I need to get, usually because he's going cross knee through, his knee's in the way. So by extending, I give myself a little more room. I usually want to then reach to the leg while keeping the frame in, so he can't underhook as I do that. And then I pull myself to the center as I reach my foot across towards the far hip. Okay? Or sometimes I take my far hip and then pull myself so his knee is now in the center. Okay? If he hasn't stepped too far away here, often then when I sit forward, I can reach that leg and roll through in a very similar manner to how we did from the combat-based position. Our other option from reverse De La Riva is to actually fold this leg across and go K-guard on this particular leg. It's going to take my right leg out as I invert. Okay, this is a very strong action. So I'm going to extend, I fold my leg across, which will become a K-guard hook as I spin. Okay, so I extend, underhook, my leg folds across, I'm going to take my inside leg out, through, and look to pummel the far armpit as I roll through, attaching into a very solid K-guard. So again with this one, we begin the invert and I immediately fold my leg across, take my right leg out, and I change so that I'm reaching under the legs. My head's spinning all the way through, okay, all the way through, capturing the leg, and my right leg shooting towards the far armpit and ending up in the K-guard position. So in summary, against a standing opponent, if they go against Ed, he gives me the space between his elbows and his knee, then I might be able to shoot my hips through, start to pummel, start looking to capture the K-guard position. Otherwise, I'm usually going to have to look to go to De La Riva guard or reverse De La Riva guard, which may lead to K-guard, or obviously there's the other options you have from those positions as well. So from De La Riva, it's usually shallow K, and then potentially up into the regular K-guard. And from reverse De La Riva, we're either taking our leg across, scooting to the middle and sitting up, or we keep our leg folded across and spin through to capture the K-guard position.
All right, let's have a look at combat base and standing entries. And this is, in this section, we're looking at like our options from combat base, not just for K-guard, but for other options too. Okay, so the first one is K-guard. So you can see here, Sean's getting up into a combat base position. So his left knee's up. He's going to get up onto his right leg here. Okay, and then he's got the knee forward. I want to attach to this far leg. So I circle to the side, I frame, and I can reach underneath the leg, and then from there, getting my hips up, I can start connecting my hands, working. Notice a little shift here, just because I'm a little worried about pressure inwards here. I actually step so I can push on the stomach as opposed to having the foot past the hip. Once I got my hands connected. Okay, so if you just look at that again, my foot's kind of going past the hip. Once my hands connect, then I'm more thinking about pushing away. So I then step with the outstep of my foot on his hips, which should be able to let me kind of push and pull. There you go. See that leg kind of pushed his hips up a little bit, and this gave me room now that his hips are up, to start to attack. Another push gives me better opening. All right. This will be another combat-based K-guard, I believe. We'll see. So, yep, here we are. So, well, not necessarily sort of combat-based, but Steve is actually standing here, but I've got this foot past the hip. Okay, so he's gone for a knee cut. Often I will peel this arm off. This gives you makes you much more secure because you're no longer worried about the knee cut. If they knee cut but they don't have that arm for an underhook, you're in a very safe position, okay? But here I sit forward. Notice ideally I could scoot in a little bit more. Ideally I could scoot my hips a little more in, but at least for the most part, Steve's knee is no longer in front of me on this side. It's now in the center, so I've got a chance to attach to the leg. But I do have to go a little bit sideways, as you can see here, and that does open me up for the crossface. So I probably should have been framing or ready to frame with my right arm to be dealing with the crossface. But you've also got a chance to attack against the crossface too, as we do here. So now I actually decide to go for that arm and try to attack that head arm position. Alright, so again in combat base here, and going for the K-guard. We'll see if I get in. Yep, good. Looks like I'm going to be pummeling my leg through. And this is when I change to the other side. Okay, but again, if we have a look at that particular entry. So combat base, foot goes past the hip. Squared my hips up. I don't know if you should be able to see that. I move my hips across. There we are. Okay, just to get the knee in the center. Now I can sit forwards. Notice I'm not like swinging on the side, but I am sitting forwards. And then I can attach to the leg as I invert through. And then I've got to try and pummel my legs in position. So I end up changing sides, as we talked about earlier in the kneeling section. Let's look at De La Riva against combat base. So here you can see Steve's in combat base. And I've actually, because of I must have just turned in. Let me see. Yeah, I was trying to turn in towards K-guard, but I couldn't get to that leg. You can see I'm reaching towards the far leg. I didn't feel like it was available. So I changed to this near leg, and having that near leg with my left hand really gets me a good angle when I swing to the other side. Okay, so you can see, ideally I actually elevate that leg, but he's actually stood up. So it swung me all the way around, pretty much towards the back and to grab ride via De La Riva. It's not always with that grip. Sometimes we change to sometimes we don't even grip at all until we get to the De La Riva. So in this case, I got my De La Riva. In this case, I went towards K-guard, changed, got my De La Riva hook, and then started to control the 2-on-1 to establish the position. Here I'm going for K-guard, and this can be a good option when you go for K-guard and they drop you their knee in front too. So you'll see the knee comes forward here and on the inside. So now it's actually killed my K-guard entry. So I'm going to take that arm so that I don't get the risk of the underhook, and then swing onto my other hip. All right. So I'm holding the arm here, but then I can grab the leg and straight into the... Usually these type of entries lead you quite well in towards the berimbolo. Back to combat base again. Let's see, this might be a different option. This might be back to reverse De La Riva. Okay. So that was switching from... We'll just watch that once more, but... And sorry. I go combat base. The knee's too far, it's too far to get to this leg. So I believe I wanted to swing back to De La Riva, but I realized that was not possible. So then I changed to underhook the leg, hook the leg here with my leg, and I can spin through for reverse De La Riva, making sure I fold my top leg so I don't get caught with any sort of counter back take. And then a very strange finish to that one. Alright, so this one I'm going for K-guard, and looks like I connect to it on the far leg. So this is more like, you could probably more say this is reverse Is this reverse De La Riva or? Yes, I've gone reverse De La Riva here against the knee cut, and then from the reverse De La Riva, taken my leg out and reached across to the leg for K-guard. So there's certainly a lot of crossover between the knee cut from reverse De La Riva and the position you end up with in combat base. Oh no, that's the same clip, sorry. Alright, here's a shallow K-guard entry. Alright, so we'll see a few shallow K-guard entries. So now against from a standing De La Riva, I pressure the knee. I'm going to reach to usually I reach to the back of the knee. I didn't in this instance, but I underhook the leg. Push on the knee to prevent my opponent driving that knee forward. We cover this in more detail in the De La Riva section, and then my hips can drop back until my foot's on the outside and knees on the inside. So it's like K-guard you would have on the thigh, but now we're just on the shin, and I can connect my hands similar to we would on the leg, and now we're in good position to attack. This is another variant of, very similar one, although I don't quite commit to the shallow K, but same entry from the ADCC trials. So I reach behind the knee, underhook the leg, I push to retract my hips, except I take my leg all the way through, which, as I talk about in the De La Riva section, it's not actually the best idea. I wouldn't do that these days. We'll have one more look at a shallow K-guard entry. So here, Lockie's pinned my leg, so I can reach to the back of the knee, so I can get my underhook in a moment. So I should be able to soon, once I'm happy with the positioning of my right leg, I should be able to underhook with my left arm. There we go. And then once I'm happy he can't retreat, so it looks like he's trying to pull his leg away. I'm happy that I've got that. Okay, now I can start pushing to get my hips out, which will help me get my foot to the outside, knee to the inside. I'm almost losing this, so I think I'm going to pull his leg across, or I might get back into position again, actually. Underhooking again, hipping out. Okay, there we go. And now I've actually got that shallow K-guard position. All right.